nothing on the table. Nice into 15. Oh, and very late.
Halbwissen in 20 Sekunden. Sekunden. Sven Halbwisser, die Bahn ist frei. Halbwisser bei den beiden Anlehnern vorbei. Der Ball vorbei. Sven 1 und 2. Links, rechts, gucken und dann Svenny. Und ist Ball vorbei. Über Nash und Dixon geht's in den Hochschuh. Sven Halbwisser. Answer by 3.
St. Moritz in Switzerland, the home of sliding sports. We are high in the Engadine Mountains, and from the town of St. Moritz down to the little village you can see at the bottom, now not so little, Celerina. They've been sliding here for over a century and a half. This track has been in existence officially, the St. Moritz Bob track, since 1904. It predates even Indianapolis Motor Speedway. After the first of our flying heats for the two-man bobsleigh, we have an entertaining lead group. Brad Hall, whose best ever result on this track has been 6th in the two-man, lies in a strong 3rd place, and he's just 500ths behind the silver medal spot. The battle is definitely on for honours. And that silver medalist, well, the most successful two-man driver this century on the track, with 5 wins here, including 2 World Championship golds, Francesco Friedrich. With Alexander Schuller, this is so often a golden combination. Can they take the victory? Well, you would think it's going to be tight at the top. It ain't, because Johannes Lochner and Georg Fleischauer appear to be in the A++ category here. They lead this race, not by a couple of hundreds, by 43 hundredths, getting on for half a second clear. The next 43 hundredths behind gold takes us down to 10th place. So first to second, the gap is as big as the rest of the top 10. Nathan Crumpton, I don't know what Lochner did. I didn't see him ignite the afterburners, but somewhere they kicked in.
I didn't either. We were looking very closely, Martin, and he was a little bit loose on the sled. He did not have those perfectly straight lines. My only guess is that he is riding it right on the edge with some really wide runners and was able to pull off some magic there. through that track after he did have that blazing 5:04 start in the first heat.
Yeah, I mean, epic starting, and they've been right there, him and Fleischauer, him and the entire crew, with Friedrich for the fastest starts. And for Friedrich, well, he knows how to win on this track. Became the youngest ever two-man world champion here back in 2013, and has been the benchmark in the sport ever since. And for Brad Hall there in the blue, hasn't had a two-man medal on this track. This could be the big day for him. Marcus Treichels, a potential contender maybe, you know, for a top 10 finish, but not for a medal. And the same probably for Patrik Baumgartner, lying in 30. Dave Wesseling, big surprise, with a sled borrowed from Sarah Blizzard. That's whose sled it was. I couldn't recognize in the first heat. A great run into 9th place. And that's another Olympic qualifying run for the Dutch, if they can hang on. The fastest 20 in the first heat go through into heat 2. Both runs count. There are no lets in this sport. So we go 20 down to 1, last to fast. Mattia Variola goes off first. Hansi Lottner is probably lying on the couch upstairs in the cafe watching things on TV for the next 30 minutes as he just chills before he goes and sets this track alight. Well, there is the start area, this historic track. The only natural track in the business, the longest, the oldest in the sport. Race 6 of the IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup season, the penultimate race before the games. First to get us underway in this second heat, Mattia Variola and Mario Lombrucci for Italy. Martin Haven and Nathan Crumpton watching tracksiders who run it deep into turn 1.
And kicking us off with a 5:18 start and a velocity of 56.42 kilometers an hour, and looking dead straight there, coming off of the kink combination. Long straightaway leading into wall where the driving really begins.
And you thought the kinks kind of died out in the early 70s. No, they're still alive here. None of the corners here actually officially have numbers in any way, shape or form. They're all numbered, like Sunny, that the sled is just coming through.
Yes, they all have names. Part of the history here, part of being that spiritual birthplace of the sliding sports of bobsled, skeleton, and cresta. We see a great smooth exit there with 106 speeds. Taking that tap, though, before Devil's Dyke, that might hurt him a little bit as we see the pace being set for our second and deciding heat here.
Well, he's the first sled down. He's our rabbit, so he's going to give us a clue of what to expect. There's the tiniest little bit of falling snow in the air. That won't affect the sleds. In fact, it might actually make the track even quicker because it will act as a lubricant between the runners and the ice. And across the line, 107.42. Okay, that's quicker than his first heat, which is a 107.54.
So right in the same ballpark there, improving by just a few hundredths. So good improvement. You always want to improve on your second heat. We will see how that stacks up against the rest of this field. But for the moment, great job for Team Italy.
Whether you're in your very first drive or the Olympic champion, it's all about being better than you were the last time out.
There we see getting hung up just a little bit late on the corner down at the bottom of the track. This is the exit out of Gunter Sachs, and then taking that little hit on the left side of the sled before hitting Martineau at top speed.
All right, so Mattia Variola, top 10 finish for the Italian. Next up, Pat Norton. There were two sleds in the field, and unfortunately, Pat bumped out Taylor Austin, his teammate.
And the Canadians powering off the block here, trying to get that heavy sled off the line, out of the grooves, and with a time of 5:25. So a little bit behind their Italian competitors here, but with better velocity, 56.60. So they're going to need to build on that as they make their way down the course.
And Norton improving on his performance last year. Last year in the World Cup race, only 23rd. This year, 19th, made the cut. And so that extra year of experience, those half dozen extra slides added into the data banks, making him a quicker driver.
It does. That was a very nice exit out of Sunny there. Very clean, no skids. Runner staying straight. Middle late entry into Horseshoe there. Getting picked up high on the end of Horseshoe.
Woo boy.
Slams it before Telephone. Whoa, making us jump here in the commentary booth.
Wow, that was nearly a replica of Chris Horn's crash in the first heat. He just hauled it off in time. Second best speed, so he is going to drop behind Mattia Variola. But at least they're not using their helmets on the way down the run. But that was as close as you want to get.
It was indeed. Taking a little tap there out of Martineau, coming out a bit early there and crossing the finish line, 107.58, but dropping back by half a second there because of that near disaster.
Yeah. Well, he shakes his head. You know, the judgment there, again, you know, you've slid this track so many times. The judgment there is if you're a couple of hundredths of a second late with the steer, it's a disaster. A couple of hundredths earlier, it's a disaster as well because you lose time. But here, just held it up. And look, he's really hauling it off. He knows the danger.
He knew it. He was trying to bring it off, but bam, smacks the wall, ice shattering everywhere.
And that's the difference between his run there and Chris Horn's. Chris Horn did not have the alarm bells ringing. That is the biggest Robin Hood I think I've seen off Horseshoe in a long time.
Yes, great rescue there by Pat Norton. Props to you.
Got it down, got it done. All right. And this is why brakemen trust their drivers. Next up, Martin Krantz, Tim Kessler, this young duo from Lichtenstein. Not the biggest nation in the business. They've still got a bobsleigh team running, though, 2- and 4-man.
Yeah, a little bit of an issue. A hand slip there on the cowling, I think, as they load 5:31. So a little bit behind at the start, maybe because of that slip of the hand there. But the Principality of Liechtenstein here represented and making their way down the course here in St. Moritz.
Yeah, Donald Holstein, one of the leading lights here, and a long-time taxi bob driver here in St. Moritz, a former racer, is a big push behind this crew as well. They've got a lot of potential, but they're dropping a little to Mattia Variola now.
Yes, they are sitting in that third spot. Not quite the velocity at the top half of the track. Can they get the smooth exits? Yeah, it looks all right. Certainly an improvement. And yes, they are rewarded with the best speed out of Horseshoe, 106.65.
Yeah, Krantz had some very good speeds lower down below Horseshoe in the first run. And that, it might just be enough to drag him back up to Mattia Variola.
It could be close here. He's got great speed. Is he over 140? Yes, he is. 141.08. Best speed we've seen so far. Clean out of Martineau, out of Portago.
Oh.
Yes, by 200ths of a second.
He led Variola by 200ths of a second in the first heat.
Well, there you go. That is almost as close as racing can get. 200ths of a second, just maintains that lead, and that is a reason to celebrate for Liechtenstein.
Started 5:31. Variola started 5:18. They end up with exactly the same time at the end of this run. It's just that those 200s. Yeah,
something was off there.
When he took his left hand completely off the push bar, and it looked like he was looking into the sled at something, and I don't know what.
No, it wasn't a slip, but it was just an awkward load. But hey, he made it in, made it down, and is sitting in first.
Kind of lost his routine there for a moment or two. Zigged when he should have zagged. Next up, Jakob Mandelbauer of Austria with Daniel Bertzler behind him. Jakob, great start from this duo. 5:16, 10th best start. Just a couple of hundred slower than their teammates Markus Treichel and Sascha Stepan, the A team for Austria.
Yep, we see them starting with hands on the handlebar, trying to launch that sled off the block, tucking in, and then getting down into the sled with a 5:18 start. Another fantastic start.
And a really nice run through kink 1 and again through kink 2, keeping that momentum alive, but losing a little bit of speed.
Yeah, opening up the lead, though, 2,800, so expanding just past a quarter of a second, little bit sideways, coming out of wall into the snake.
Pat Norton, by the way, has the best exit velocity of the third fastest start.
Go figure.
The Canadians were doing something right there. Oh, little skid out of Dixon, down to Horseshoe, gets it high.
Right up to the roof there in Horseshoe. Wow. Third best speed, a little bit wild, a little bit offline, coming down through Nameless, and now into the lower portion of the track.
All right, still 1,500s up, but the gap is down to half what it was, and he doesn't have the speed of Martin Krantz of Liechtenstein. He was only, 800s ahead of him in the first heat, and now he drops back. How far back? Third at the line, behind Variola. Well, the top two, there's the Liechtenstein crew, Martin Krantz on the right, Tim Kessler on the left. Top two are covered by just 200s. That's effectively one sled, isn't it?
It is, yes. So you're either ahead of both of them or more than likely behind both of them, and that's unfortunately where he ended up.
Now, I suspect we might see Horseshoe because Mandelbauer was knocking on heaven's door here, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was the exit there out of sunny. Here's Horseshoe. Whoa, just getting right up to the top there. And then coming down at that 2/3 mark. And then, yep, that rear runner just flopping off the ice and breaking into it before entering telephone.
And the brakemen are bouncing up and down in the sled. Daniel Bertzler. All right. So it is Martin Krantz of Lichtenstein who leads, and his advantage over the next sled is a full 12 hundredths of a second rather, as the snow starts to come down. Reynolds Grantins and Edgar Zungas, the young driver and the experienced brakeman, and another decent getaway, 5:23.
5:23 puts them in the mix. They have green numbers so far. Fourth best velocity, 56.16. Currently in the green. Nice line coming down into wall, quarter of a second in the bank. Those waves of the sled that we see as they enter in this quick transition combination, one of the few on the course, the only one potentially on the course, and going into sunny with, again, 28 hundredths in the bank. Yeah,
he's having a nice drive, Reynolds Grantins. Really rate him as an up-and-coming young pilot. It's the first time we've seen him in World Cup action. He's only been driving for a couple of seasons. Whoa!
Gets a little sideways there through telephone. Straightens it out, though. He's back online, it looks like, through Nameless, and then into the tricky combination with the fastest speeds here, 1:17.28.
We saw the Latvians do that in the first heat as well, get very sideways and not bleed speed.
And good speed, 1:40.4, second fastest we've seen.
All right, so he is going to take the lead away from Martin Krantz of Lichtenstein, 1:07.19, but the crew from Lichtenstein have pulled themselves up the order. They'll be no worse than 17th after finishing in 18th position, tied for 18th position in the first heat.
And that's a great little run there, giving them a 35 hundredths of a second gap. This is the exit off of Horseshoe and just scrapes the side of the bunk there before entering Telephone. And this was that little flop in the skid off of Telephone before Shamrock, but gets it back online really quickly.
So Reynolds Grantins, his season, 23rd, 21st, 20th, 18th, 11th, and he leads now with 15 to go. The first of whom, Cedric Follador, his alternate brake crew, and the rest of the Swiss pushers there. On the right-hand side in the jacket, applauding, that's Tim Allen, Debbie's brother, and the younger one of the sliding Allen siblings. Cedric Follador with Enrico Gunter behind him. Let's see what they've got. 5:28 first heat, 5:30 second.
Yep, so a couple hundred slower, still within the ballpark, but I'm wondering if maybe that sled in the snow, in the grooves rather, got in his way, and a little bit shaky there coming down into wall.
It was just starting to pick up with the wind a little bit as well, and that can definitely have an effect when you're running upright, pushing a sled. Through Snake 1 and Snake 2.
And into Sunny now, 12 hundredths of a second back. So he's going to have to drive himself into position here, and this is the corner that could help him do that. Going into Horseshoe, up towards the roof, a little high on the end there. Well, let's see how the speed shakes out, but no, it worked for him. 1:06.74, best speed we've seen so far.
It's how you bring that speed down into Telephone and Shamrock, and it was clean, and now through the fast four right-handers, still top speed, so he's going to close on Reynolds Grantins. This should be, ooh, double tap. Should be enough to put him into the lead, but it's not going to be by much. This could be to the 100th. 19 hundredths back. Wow, Grantins and Tina, the mascot from the games. Can't believe it, 1:07.45. It looked like Follador was closing. He did not close.
No, unfortunately not, despite having that great speed, over 140 kilometers an hour. Some phenomenal speed at the bottom, but just wasn't quite long enough. Here, that replay going through Horseshoe gets a little bit high on the end there, which we've seen a few sleds do, but he recovers well. Then this is the exit of Telephone. Gets that little flop there, but keeps it straight. Nice entry into Shamrock there.
Yeah, you saw the sled, the front of the sled washing out of Horseshoe. So oversteering a little. Maybe the runner's just too fat for what he needed. Next up, Marcus Treichel. I actually think he's probably not over excited about being in 14th place here, or about the prospect of a snow race, although it might bring his rivals back towards him if the snow really starts to fall. Sasha Stepan behind him. They started 6th quickest, 5:14. They should not be down in 14th place.
No, they had one of the fastest starts in the first heat, and 5:12. They've improved on that here in the second heat. Gives them still not the best velocity, though. Curious, 55.72. Is it the snow? Is there a little, oh, there's a drift, though.
Yeah.
3/10 of a second, so they've got good time. Can they build on it? Big final wave there in wall. Snake 1, transition into Snake 2. Couple twigs on the track before Sunny, still at 3400ths as they make their way into Nash and Dixon.
Watching the back of the sled, I'm starting to get the feeling that it's just sliding around behind him, and Marcus is having to overdrive to compensate.
And might be
late.
Yeah, so out of Telephone, out of Shamrock, 103.57, not the best speed, only 7th best speed. What can he do with that?
He's been 7th on the speed charts all the way down, and the answer is he's still building speed.
And he's still holding his position. He's in the green, about 3/10 up, almost 4/10, 7th best speed yet again.
Yeah.
So we should have the lead here at the bottom.
Yeah, by a handy margin, 2200ths of a second, well, down from 3800ths in the forest. 107.06, 107.31 first heat, so that's a considerable improvement. 107.06 would have left him in 9th place in the first heat, not down in 14th, which off the 6th best start, you sort of think, okay, maybe that's a little below par, but not a long way back.
Here we see that powerful start, dropping into the sled, tucking in, pulling the lever, getting that push bar down, and then grabbing the D-ring so that you can control the sled. There's the exit, that flop off of Horseshoe, but does not take the hit before Telephone.
All right, Sasha Stepan on the left, Marcus Tricol on the right-hand side. Another sliding family. His parents work in the race office in Innsbruck. Patrick Baumgartner, first youth Olympic champion in boys bobsleigh, and Rob Messier behind him. One of the most explosive pushes. Look at those eyes. Shades there of Yanis Minins, who used to have the most saucer eyes just before every run, really trying to get himself hyped up.
They are Baumgartner here, one of the veterans in the field, one of the most experienced athletes. Starts with a 5:22 for their team into the sled, but with the best velocity. Look at that, 56.88, and they're going to need that if they want to get the lead, because at the moment they are 800ths of a second behind.
All right, out of wall, all 3 pressures neatly dealt with, no skids, no sliding. 800s back, nothing in it at all. Still 800s back at Sunny, comes off a fraction early maybe.
Yep, so this is into the Dixon corner, gets off of Dixon, straight shot, nice into Horseshoe, takes it right to the roof, pretty smooth off as well. And yes, rewarded with the best speed, 107.21, little tap there in Devil's Dyke, but holding the line, and yes, there he goes, right into the green, 200ths of a second, probably going to build on it, I would expect.
You would hope so, and certainly if he comes clean out of Gunter Sachs, he does. This should build more speed and increase his margin.
Almost 142 kilometers an hour, best speed we've seen so far, and yes, opens it up to 2100ths, 106.93 for the Italian team.
Exactly 3/10 of a second quicker than his first run, and that was a smoother looking drive, and actually particularly Horseshoe and below, he really fired it out of Horseshoe, got that speed building nicely.
He did, he took it right to the roof there, and did not have any issues on the exit. So here we go, this is out of Dixon, leading up to Horseshoe, gets that middle late, almost late entry, then goes almost to the roof. Wow, getting within millimeters of that woodwork there. Both bunks almost scraping the top, but then he was rewarded with the best velocity exiting.
And you saw how smooth the transition was. That's what builds the speed. Now then, we saw some great speeds from this sled as well. Mihai Tentea of Romania with Andrei Nisha behind him. 25th fastest start, 12th at the bottom. And he's going to have to do the same again. Way outdrive their starting speed.
A little bit of a wiggle there getting into the sled, but straightened it out. 5:25 at the start here. And the second best velocity, 56.62. As we mentioned in the first heat, one of the best technical drivers in the field. Maybe not at the top with the start, but he really does know how to get a sled down a track.
Yeah, 6th fastest push. They improved their speed at the start, and they got the 3rd best velocity. So he's already building speed now. He drops back because his start was not as quick as Patrick Baumgartner's, and there was barely anything between them in the first heat.
Just snuck it by there out of Dixon, then a nice exit out of Horseshoe. 20 hundredths, second best speed, so I don't know if this is enough.
It's not. Baumgartner was fastest at every speed trap all the way down. Baumgartner has outdriven Tentier in this run.
Yep.
And Tentier is going to drop behind Marcus Treichel as well, who's currently lying in second place. A long skid.
Ooh.
Not the second heat Mihai Tentier needed. He was aiming for the top 10, and he's going to go in the other direction.
No, 107.26, falls back by just over a quarter of a second. And great driver, but just let the sled get away from him a little bit too much there and couldn't build the speed the way he did in the first heat.
Well, Baumgartner went 3/10 quicker than his first heat. Mihai went 1/10 slower than his first heat, and that's unusual for this Romanian slider.
It is. Here's the shot of Horseshoe, so also not getting quite as high in Horseshoe as we've seen. And then there on the exit of Horseshoe, does he have the flop? A tiny little flop, but still avoids the hit. And then down towards the bottom of the track, yes, that was the skid. You can see those back runners kicking out and then just scrubbing speed before Martineau.
Well, the Romanians with a 2-sled men's team and a women's team as well, doing more with less, perhaps, than anybody else. And now Timo Röhner finished 7th in last year's race. Luca Rolli behind him at the start. And they're in a tie for 10th place, the second tie in our field already. They started their first run with a 5:26, and that is a 5:22, so a good improvement and a nice run through Kink 1, represented by the best starting speed.
Yep, so an excellent Kink number 1 there, going through Kink 2 on their way down to wall. This is another team that knows how to drive from the first heat. 21st place at the start, 10th place at the bottom. Little bit off kilter there.
Yep, and flopping between Snake 1 and Snake 2, come clean off Sunny, no skidding there as well. Tail of the sled is steering as much as the driver is.
Yep, and then goes early into Horseshoe. Smooth exit though, 1500s in the bank. Little flop off the telephone, 6th best speed. Ooh, is it getting away from him here?
Well, only 1500s up. The gap's coming back down to a 10th, only 4th best speed. Baumgartner, the leader, had the highest speed down at the bottom of the track. Röhner's going to have to really be good to try and hang on. This could be, and he's going to be behind, isn't he? No! How does he hang on? 106.99. Well, it was not a pretty run, but it was enough to guarantee himself maybe a top 10 finish.
By the skin of his teeth, 500ths of a second. What a narrow margin, and especially with those 2 hits there out of Martineau. Oh, man, just by a whisker.
But all the way down, the back of the sled was sliding around. The driver can only really control the front with the D-rings. The back was doing as much driving as Timo Röhner was himself.
Here's the exit now, pretty high, yep, and then takes that little flop. Not the smooth transition that we've seen some of the other sleds go with.
All right, so we have a Swiss leader, 10 down, 10 to go here in St. Moritz. Timo Röhner ahead of Patrick Baumgartner and Marcus Treichel, names that should be in the top 10. Well, of course, as the track evolves, as the weather changes, you can see clouds coming and going, snow coming and going. Nathan Crumpton, anything might yet happen. That's one of the joys of St. Moritz, is that it produces unusual results because it's different from everywhere else.
It absolutely is. It is a unique track. It is one with so much history in it. It's a one that the sliders tend to love to come to because it's also so smooth.
Silent, almost vibration-free. Even when you're going down in a taxi, Bob, it's just got an utterly different feel to everybody everywhere else. And of course, then you've got the scenery. I mean, really only Cortina and, to be honest, Innsbruck as well match this in terms of the glamour of the scenery around the location. But this place has got history that any sporting venue would give its eye teeth for.
The only thing that might disturb your run down to this track is the private jets that tend to fly overhead, landing at the Engadine airport just a few kilometers away.
Yeah, lots of support for the Latvians here. And you just saw Reynolds Grantins, his crew down at the bottom. That we did have a dead heat for 10th place. Timo Räikkönen tied with Jakob's Calendar. That's Calendar and his teammate Lars Kaufmanns at the top. Lars and Doves both pushing for the Latvian team. So we'll have to wait and see how they fare right towards the end of the race. Lots of British support. That's down at the finish, overlooking the finish area. Getting a little cloudy, a little blowy. Marcus Treichel there watching the action in the black and white jacket as well. So the athletes tend to like to hang around and watch the race, unless it's really bitterly cold.
But luckily it's been fairly warm here the past couple days compared to what we saw earlier in the week.
Yeah.
And also the temperature has stabilized, which makes it for a more fair race, so long as that snow stays away today.
Race 6, IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're in the Wimbledon of bobsleigh. We are in St. Moritz in Switzerland. 10 down, 10 to go. Jakob's Calendar and brakeman Lars Kaufmanns get us back underway with Latvia in 10th place after the first heat. Martin Haven and Nathan Crumpton watching with you.
Yes, and Calendar here with a 5.16 to kick himself off of the top of the track here. This is one of the sliders who had one of the most even start finishes, 11th at the start in the first heat, 10th by the end. That's a good reflection of his ability not only to start but also to drive and fight for these top 10 finishes. Here it is, going through Snake 1 and Snake 2 on his way into Sunny. Sunny then kicking out into this little tricky bit. Oh, and a little bit of a touch on the wall. It looks like he corrected well as he makes his way into Horseshoe here. Yeah, that's a junior start lower down called Monty's Bolt. And as they come down through Telephone, Shamrock, and then Devil's Dyke, only the 6th best speed. 600s ahead at the start, still only 600s ahead of Timo Räikkönen. Now he's added another 100th to that. 4th best speed, really smooth lines. These are some of the smoothest entries and exits we've seen. A little bit of a skid there going before the top speed section. Now he and Räikkönen were tied to the 100th in the first heat. Is it a tie again? No, he breaks it by 400ths of a second. 1:06.95 for his second heat, so improving by a considerable margin and taking the lead here in our race. Yeah, 1700s quicker than the first heat, but critically, just enough ahead of Timo Räikkönen to guarantee himself a top 10 finish. So Calendar, that is his, I know it's his 3rd top 10 of the season, but his first in the new year. Yeah, we saw that was the touch there at Monty's Bolt before Nash and Dixon. A little bit of a jump in the sled there in Dixon. And then here at the bottom of the track, that's out of Gunter Sachs and taking a little bit of a skid going sideways before Martineau. Lars Kaufmanns there on the right. And now, this is a big moment for Dave Wesselink and Jelen Francic of the Netherlands. The sled is that of Australian driver Sarah Blizzard. So let's see what they can do. Yep. Bring it back in one piece would be nice. That is the key, because they did have that horrible crash earlier in the week. So great to see that they recovered and that they are even here competing. Yeah. 5:10. Epic starting, 5:14 in the first heat. They would love to be in the top 8 to really remove any question about this being a national standard qualifying run for the games. Yes, indeed. Wow, that was a fantastic start there. Still holding on to a 1/10 of a second in the bank, going through the snake combination here. And we saw, just as before he got in the sled, Dave here, he does not slide with gloves on. He goes barehanded on the D-rings. We see some of the athletes, they choose to get a better feel of the sled that way as he makes his way into Horseshoe here. And it's like Kaylee Humphries with the goggles. It's what you do when you're learning. Oh, a little late flop from Telephone to Shamrock. Yep, it's got to keep it together here. Going through Devil's Dyke into Nameless and then into the Tree Bridge lead. Gunter Sachs combination, 900ths, close. And quicker than Calendar. He was 300ths ahead of Calendar in the first heat. He's about 900ths away from a top 8 finish in the first heat. He needs this to be a really quick run across the line at 1:06.87. That is excellent stuff from Dave Wesselink. Well done, Dave. What a drive. Oh, and yes, celebrating in orange. Look at that. Well done, boys. All right.
Entirely impartial, Nathan Crumpton's Dutch jacket is hanging on the back of his chair. But there's Janko in the background, and at the front is Ivo de Bruin, the last driver to represent the Netherlands in the Olympic Games. And I think that is enough. Dave Wesseling hopefully will be going to Cortina for the Netherlands.
That's the exit here off of Horseshoe. Nice smooth transition, no jump of the runners there. Yes!
So what I love about the Dutch is they're so sanguine and unaffected by it. All right, so that magic 8th place, Frank Del Duca and Josh Williamson. Now, for Frankie, 8th would be far from magic. It would be his worst result of the season. Let's see if he can pick off a couple here.
Frank jumping into the sled with Josh in the back. Oh, Josh's knee got stuck there. Couldn't quite get down. 5:19 for Team Del Duca.
Well, the good news is he knows how important it is for the brakeman not to move once you get out of kink 1, and he just managed to settle himself. Even if you're in a really uncomfortable position, you cannot move until you get to wall. Otherwise, you just move the sled around.
Exactly. Veteran move there by Josh in the back as Frank gets it up to 0.03 of a second. So he's closing that gap. Maybe he's going to take the lead here. It's going to be close. A little bit of a wiggle in the sled as he makes his way into Horseshoe.
Yeah, didn't have the greatest run through Nash and Dixon. Nicely smooth out of Horseshoe. Little flop out of Telephone.
Oh, best speed yet, though. 107.22 takes the tap before Devil's Dyke. This is going to be close here. MUSA sled running well, building the lead. 0.11 of a second.
Yep, same speed. Oh, he's in real trouble there.
Whoa, not keeping the sled straight, but still building fantastic speed. 140 back down to 7th fastest speed.
All right, is he going to be in front at the line? He is, unbelievably. Wow.
Oh boy, that was really touch and go there, but Frankie manages to hold on and secures the lead for the moment.
I think Frank Del Duca and Brian Scheimer probably aged about a decade there in a couple of tenths of a second.
Oh boy, he was letting it run into some places that were probably not ideal. So boom, there we go. Hangs onto the edge, skids off the corner there. This is at the bottom of the track. And then again, hangs on just a little bit late, but corrects it. And then into Gunter Sachs, but comes out a bit early, holds it straight though, and oh man, up and down. What a yo-yo run for Frank Del Duca.
That leap bridge, oh, yikes. All right, so Del Duca leads, now just 400s ahead of him were the French, Roman Heinrich and Dorian Oterville. I'm combining their two names there. Heinville and Oterich.
Yes, and Heinrich here, great driving in the first heat. From 17th at the start all the way up to 7th. A 10-spot jump and a 5:18 there. Substantial improvement.
Yep, outstarting their American rivals. 4th best velocity from the 4th best start, so a good getaway. Relatively smooth down to wall.
700ths in the lead, so we're going to see, can he hold on to it? That veteran French slider coming out of retirement, trying to hang on for the French Olympics. Ooh, a little bit wobbly there, down to 100th, and no, he's falling into the red.
Yep, little uncomfortable Nash and Dixon now. He's got to have a great height in Horseshoe and use it well. Not the highest, but a smooth landing. What's the speed like? Not as fast as Del Duca, who was 4th quickest.
No, he's not quite as quick, and so it might slip down the order just a little bit. 6th fastest.
Unless he's clean here, and he is, and that should bring him more speed back against Frank Del Duca with that big moment.
I don't know if he can do it. He's running out of track here, sitting in 3rd spot, 141, solid speed, but I don't think it's enough.
It is not enough, 107.01.
So Frank Del Duca claims his first victim here in the 2nd heat and climbs up a spot.
All right, so Roman Heinrich drops 1. He will be no worse than 8th place. And that will be his 2nd best result of the season. 6th position in race 2 in Innsbruck. And that's his only run in the top 10. This will be his 2nd top 10 finish of the year.
Smooth load, and here's the line in Horseshoe. As you noted, not a very high line. Quite a bit of real estate there between the bunks and the roof there. And then takes it off well, but as we saw, just not quite the speed from some of the other sleds.
Yeah, didn't really use that height. It's like a roller coaster. If you don't go up high, you don't come down fast. So the first German sled, and we are 6 to go. Adam Amor with big Benedikt Hertel behind him, giving him a great start. 5:14 in the first heat. Is this not quite as quick? 5:15.
5:15 and the velocity 57.02, so the runner's going a little bit sideways. You can see him just making these little tiny adjustments on the straight. Now he's got it set. Good line, spotted into wall.
Yeah, leaning over in the left of the sled, just trying to nudge it along.
Yeah, a little pressure attached to the sled there on the exit of wall there. Made the correction. 2100s in the tank right now. Nash and Dixon, where is he going to be?
Well, again, still probably not had more than half a dozen races in his career on this track, including this week. So at an experience deficit against his rivals.
And 7th best speed, not where we're used to seeing him. He's usually fighting for those podium spots. He's got that great FES equipment behind him. He's got a great push start. 7th best speed, he's still in the lead, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
No, I don't know either. Frank Del Duca didn't have great speed. Big skids again from Amor down out of Gunter Sachs. 1300s becomes 1400s at the line. He just held on, and that's largely a result of that big moment that Frank Del Duca had in the forest that cost him speed. So Amor gets a wider podium finish, and that might be the last two-man drive for Benedikt Hertel. He'll be racing next week in Altenburg. There's Issam Amor, Adam's older brother.
And you saw the sigh of relief from the German coaches at the bottom there. They knew they got away with it. So here we go. Powerful start, 5:15, and then through horseshoe, nice high line, tucked in the back, eyeing the exit, bringing the sled off of the corner there, and gets a fairly smooth transition there, just the tiniest of drops.
All right, so Amor was a little scrappy at the top, but kept it together to lead with 5 to go. Change at the back of Kim Jin-soo's sled. Chai Byung-do started in the first heat, but he's got the big Kim Hyung-gyu behind him in this second heat. So Chai obviously coming up a little either lame or injured or whatever. So Hyung-gyu has been behind Jin-soo a lot in the two-man. It's not a bad combination. 5:10, they go faster than their first start.
That's a monster start, 5:10. I think that's the fastest we've seen, tied fastest that we've seen for this second heat. And they bring it into wall with 1200ths of a lead.
All right, so the advantage over Adam Amor was just 400ths from the first heat, but they outstarted Amor by 500ths.
And they're building on it out to 1700ths. Nash-Dixon combination. Going in early into horseshoe. Still gets it nice and high, though. Going into telephone, opening it up. 0.2 of a second. Oh, takes that knock, though, right there before Devil's Dyke. That might hurt them a little bit in terms of speed. And third fastest, still just 0.2.
Not out of the top 10 all season long. Best result has been a couple of fourth-place finishes, including in Cortina. Kim's going to take the lead here. He's a couple of tenths in the bank. Only the 9th best speed, but it will be enough. 1900s up, 106.62.
Fastest sled we've seen down the ice so far with that 106.62. And yes, Kim squared coming in hot, currently in first place here.
Second fastest trip down the track today. Only Lochner's first run has been faster.
That's telling you something right there. We see that little bit of a flop off of telephone going into Shamrock, but keeps the sled straight. This is the tap? Yep, that's the double tap, but straightens it out before Devil's Dyke.
Track evolution, it's a thing. The ice is at least as fast as in the first heat, and that ramps up the pressure on Mickey Vogt of Switzerland with Amadou and Daye behind him. And this will be his last World Cup weekend. He will not go to Altenburg, so he will have his final World Cup race in Switzerland and then get set for the games. 5:14 start, 6th best getaway, and they came down in 4th place. And they are just 600ths out of silver. Teammate Melanie Hassler took silver in the mono this morning. Is this a double medal weekend starting for Switzerland?
We'll find out here in just about a minute. And a 5:18 off the top here puts them just behind as they make their way down through the kinks and on these long straightaways.
Yeah, started 800 slower than Kim and was only 700ths in front of him in the first heat.
through wall, little bit of a skid there off of wall. Snake 1, snake 2.
And I wonder if that falling snow, that light little dusting of snow, is actually making the sleds move around more now.
Yep, also a little bit of a tap there at Monty's bolt going into horseshoe now. Good height. Looks like a smooth exit, but quarter of a second back.
Yeah. The gap is widening. He was only ahead when he sat down, and he's, holding that 2400s, but there's not enough track left for him to get a quarter of a second back on Kim.
No, slated right now to fall behind Kim as well as Amor, and oh, nope, he's now back into second. How close is it going to be?
Not close enough, 1400s back. So 106.85 compared to 106.77 in the first heat. Kim leads with 3 to go. Kim has had 2 fourth-place finishes in the opening races of the season. He is going to at least equal his World Cup best result of the year.
No, and should be on the podium, though, for the European Championships, I would think.
No, there are
have
3 European sleds still to go ahead of Mickey Vogt. So.
Yes, Brad Hall as well. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
no, so one of them would have to falter, in other words.
Britain not part of the EU, but still counted as European.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Glossing over that unfortunate political fact. Well, Mickey Vogt disappointed with that run. What about Brad Hall? This has been the single best run he's had in a two-man this year. Big T, Taylor Lawrence behind him, recently became a dad, getting fitter and faster. And this is the golden combination. Sam Moritz Bob Club logos on the front of their helmets.
Yeah, look at that.
Representing Nash and Dixon. Yeah, exactly.
Nod to the history, and
5.11, great getaway. 5.13 in the first heat. Neat down through King 1. He had a little meander in the first run. This is straight as a die.
That is dead straight there going into wall. 12/100ths of a second, and Brad Hall knows he's in contention for multiple medals here.
Into Snake 1 and Snake 2. Now, will Nash and Dixon be nice to them?
Let's find out. Gets it cleanly out of Sonny. Nash. Dixon, clean out of Dixon as well, and straight middle late. Oh, right to the roof there in horseshoe. Excellent height, and yes, rewarded with the top speed, 107.54.
Nailed the landing and needed to, because the gap has come down from 1200s to 700s, but that speed is bringing it back out. He's driving himself ahead of Kim Jin-soo towards the top 3.
Takes a couple taps there before Martineau out of Gunter Saxon, drops back to 10th best speed.
Very close indeed. There's a headwind on the straight, and he just has it. He's in the medals. 106.67, and that means he's also going to be a European medalist as well. He was the European bronze medalist in Lillehammer last year. He'll be at least the European bronze medalist this year. And you see what that first medal of the season means.
Medalist for European Championships, medalist here, guaranteed for St. Moritz, taking it so high, right to the roof there in horseshoe, but came out with the best speed.
There have only been 2 all-German podiums on this track since 2007, and there won't be one again this year. Well done, Brad Hall. Now, part of the problem with skidding is there is a big headwind now down that straight into Martineau and Portago. So you're actually running into the wind. If you get sideways, you're losing even more. Francesco Friedrich and Alexander Schuller, 5 times a winner on this track, Friedrich.
Oh, and he slips. He missed the handlebar.
Wow.
He missed the
World
handlebar
Championships.
there.
He's trying everything to get a fast start and hits the wall. 5.04 getaway.
Wow. Amazing start, especially considering that Francesco did not get his hand. His right hand missed it on the handlebar as he hit it. Incredible that they were able to still pull out the fastest start we've seen so far, opening up a 0.2 of a second lead going through this top portion of the track.
And tying the start record from the first heat at 5.04, 2400s up. Miss start or not, Friedrich can still drive up a storm. He's been a 2-time world champion on this track alone.
And he has won 4 out of the last 7 gold medals on this track, trying to keep the sled straight there.
Big skids.
Going through the lower portion of this track, still about a quarter of a second in the tank, but only the 9th best speeds because of those errors.
And Brad Hall was fastest until here. So Friedrich, what's the gap going to be? He's still going to be in the green at the line. Surely he is going to take the lead with 1 to go. A monster run.
1:06.31. That is just a hair off of his teammate Lochner, and guarantees himself at least 2 medals here, the European one and the World Cup one. But the question is, what color will it be?
Well, Friedrich looking for win number 6 on this track, or silver medal number 6 on this track. Now, there's the handle. This is the power start off the line.
Yep, he misses it. Look, his right hand is not even on the push bar. Slips that right hand, just pushes with his shoulder and his left hand.
His first 2-man race on this track, his brakeman didn't get in. That was quite close to the driver not making it in. Well, Francis, now he's going to watch what Hansi does, trying to figure out how Lochner was 43 hundredths faster in just 1 run down this track.
Johannes Lochner laid it down in the first heat. Has to replicate it, though, if he's going to take home those gold medals.
Because Friedrich went 0.4 of a second quicker in the second run than in his first.
And the start here, 5:02 start record here for Team Lochner.
What is he doing this year? It's unbelievable.
The pressure was on, and he responded. He saw what his teammate did, and he says, no, sir, I can go 1 better than that. Going through snake combination, S1, S2, then going into Sunny here, opening up a yawning half-second lead as he makes his way into Nash and Dixon.
But we've seen people give away plenty of speed. Horseshoe will be absolutely key to winning this race.
Nice, very smooth exit. Great, oh yes, 1:07.84, phenomenal speed here. And this is just, he's putting on the clinic.
Absolute showmanship from Johannes Lochner. Second best speed, but quicker than Friedrich. And he's going to continue to open up that advantage. Nearly 0.7 of a second clear.
Best speed at the bottom, 1:42.77, opening up the lead. What a run here from Lochner.
New European champion, new track record, a 1:05.96. Wow.
Almost 0.8 of a second in the lead here, winning the race by a yawning chasm.
So that is win number 5 in 2-man on this track for Johannes Lochner. He ties Francesco Friedrich for the wins here. And Hansi claims his 25th 2-man gold medal in the World Cup.
What a great race there. Now, if you look back at the history here, in the last 8 races, it has either gone to Francesco Friedrich or Johannes Lochner, and they're both split at 4 wins apiece.
Well, Brad Hall and Hansi Lochner, Brad spent so much time in Bavaria over the years. They're really good friends. He's the first to offer his congratulations. But what an absolute masterclass from Johannes Lochner. He will look at it and go, I was late there, I was early there, that was a mistake, didn't drive that properly, I meandered here, I skidded there. But all of that notwithstanding, he did what you have to do, is let the sled fly, do the least driving possible, and just do it in the right spots. And it's the secret to speed. As we always say, it's not the man who drives the most who wins, it's the person who drives the least. And Lochner was that person. Wild and loose it might have been, but boy, it was fast. Friedrich takes silver, Hall takes bronze ahead of Kim Vogt and Amor. Vesseling, that 8th place finish. What a great run for him, just behind Frank Del Duca. And Roman Heinrich 9th ahead of Jakobs Kalender. A really good day. And Hansi and Georg, honestly, I don't know how they could be having more fun. I guess we might find out in February. Breathless stuff, and that's not just because of the altitude. Lochner continues to lead the World Cup standing. He's won every race but 1 in the 2-man this season. He's won every race but 1 in the 4-man this season. Amor still 3rd from Del Duca, Kim and Vogt, but Vogt will drop down the order as Treichel, Hall, Baumgartner and the rest will move on next week in the 2-man competition to Altenburg. But before that, tomorrow we have women's bobsleigh and the 4-man competition, and those 2 will also count for the European Championships as well as for World Cup points. And of course, the significance of the World Cup points this year is that your IBSF standing is where you start in the Olympic Games draw. Well, there's your podium. Lochner, Friedrich, Hall. First medal of the season for Brad Hall, with Big T back behind him in the two-man. They could not be happier, and well representing the St. Moritz Bob Club. So in terms of the European Championships, gold goes to Johannes Lochner, last year's silver medalist, and silver goes to Francesco Friedrich, last year's gold medalist. Brad Hall, last year's bronze medalist in Lillehammer, is the bronze medalist here. Fourth for Mickey Vogt, fifth for Adam Amor, and on the wider podium, Dave Wesseling of the Netherlands in sixth position, ahead of Rommel Heinrich, Jacobs Kalender, Timo Rona, and Patrick Baumgartner, rounding out the top 10 in the European Championship standings. So thrilling stuff this morning in the mono, and although Lochner was absolutely crushingly dominant here, a fantastic race in the two-man competition. Join us tomorrow, 9 local, 0800 GMT, 0300 Eastern, as we get women's bobsleigh underway, and the four-man, the big dogs, the Königsklasse, tomorrow afternoon starting at 1. But we'll see you tomorrow morning. Until then, from all of us here in St. Moritz, goodbye for now.